I have been critical of basically everything that Disney has done with Star Wars since they started doing Star Wars. And I'll talk about that in the bulk of the review a little bit more. But I think of all of the recent Star Wars films, Rogue One is my favorite. I think it's better than the sequel trilogy. I think it's obviously better than Solo. It's better than all the shows they've done so far. Yes, including The Mandalorian, which I do enjoy. And this is not only better than Rogue One, this is the best thing that Disney has done with the franchise and the best piece of Star Wars content since the original trilogy. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on that red subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. So in the past, I have ranked all of the Star Wars films. I will link to that video down below. And I'm a huge Star Wars guy, right? Big Star Wars nerd. Love all the video games. Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Fallen Order. I'm super excited about Survivor. I am Star Wars guy. I love everything about it. And I think Disney has largely dropped the ball with the franchise since they acquired it. And here's where I would go. I think that I like The Force Awakens. I think it's aged unfortunately poorly because of the sequels to it. And I think they've kind of dragged it down. The Last Jedi is effing trash, and The Rise of Skywalker is just a train wreck. As far as the shows, Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, really, really good. I don't think they're incredible, but I think they're really good. And the Book of Boba Fett is honestly an abomination that should be cast into the fires of hell. And I think the Book of Boba Fett is the worst thing that Star Wars has ever done. I really, really, really dislike what they did with that show, and they made Boba Fett into kind of a wuss and like a crime lord, which doesn't make any sense. He's a bounty hunter. They took everything we loved about Boba Fett and just threw it in the garbage, said F you, and then we're gonna move on with our day. I liked Solo probably more than most people. I know it was kind of a mess behind the scenes, and Kathleen Kennedy seems to have butchered that, but I like the end product. I think Ron Howard did as good of a job as he could salvaging it. I never had any high expectations for Andor, and I didn't know who was involved. And now looking back on it, it makes sense that the show is successful. And this show is extremely successful. This is an awesome show, and for a couple reasons. The technical aspects of it are all first class. It looks great. They did a really good job with the editing. The music is like top notch. It's not super Star Warsy, which I appreciate. It's very distinct, and they nailed that aspect of it. And then the two things that are the most important when you do any show, the two things I talk about the most, writing and characters, they nailed. They absolutely nailed. Tony Gilroy is like the creator, the showrunner, and his brother Dan is one of the main writers. He wrote, and I think he wrote 3 of the episodes. I think he directed 3 of them as well. I think he actually wrote more than 3 based on what I saw with the credits, but that's neither here nor there. Dan Gilroy wrote one of my favorite movies and also directed it, which is Nightcrawler. So the guy knows his way around a script, and this is a nuanced, nasty, dark, kind of screwed up version of the Star Wars universe because it deals with questions about what does it take to actually rebel against an evil dictatorship that rules the universe. And it does its best to muddy those waters. And this is not a black and white at all show. It's extremely gray, and that's what I love about it. This is fantastic writing. And what I like, and what I think I was worried about is that, okay, this is just going to be like the backstory of Andor, like how he becomes this soldier in the Rebel Alliance, and it's really not. It's not at all. And that's what makes it successful. If it had tried to be that, we know his end game, right? Spoiler alert, we know he dies at the end of Rogue One in order to transmit the Death Star plans to ultimately to Princess Leia and spark the rebellion and begin, and lead directly into A New Hope. And instead of this show just being about him, this is about the bigger picture. Mon Mothma is a central character. she's the actress who plays her, who I don't know who any of these actors are apart from like Stellen Skarsgård and somebody else who I'll get to later. But this show really, the acting, the characters, all of that big picture stuff surrounding the Rebel Alliance and their fight against the Empire is fantastic. Also, I love the way the Empire is portrayed here because they're not black and white either. They're obviously like terrible people, but you get to see the things that the rebellion does that makes them like tighten their hands around the neck of the rebellion. And there's like there's tons of like political drama and intrigue regarding the financing of the rebellion, and like the entire thing ends on like this awesome cliffhanger with a great post-credits scene during the last episode. There's 12 episodes here, which is a lot. There's tons of content here, despite the fact that the episodes have like 6 or 7 minutes worth of credits at the end, which is kind of dumb. But yeah, huge fan of this show. They did everything right. And there's 2 sequences I want to mention in particular. There's an and I don't think this is spoiler. I'm trying really hard to keep this spoiler free. There's an incredible, basically like prison breakout. And Andy Serkis is a main character. And I really want to see what they do with him in the future because, man, this is one of the best performances that he's ever done, and probably his best like live action performance where he's not doing some sort of mocap. And I love that he's here and he's awesome in the part that they ask him to play. And Diego Luna as Andor he's great. Everybody in this show is great. The villains are great, the heroes are great, the story is great, the writing is great, the characters are great, everything about it is great. And this is what we really needed from Star Wars, and I hope it breathes some fresh air into it. And if I'm Disney, I'm already making a new trilogy with Dan and Tony Gilroy. It's just a no-brainer. And if they don't, it's their own damn problem. And they have to keep the momentum going because now they've really raised the bar on whatever happens next, especially when it comes to streaming Star Wars content. The Mandalorian Season 3 has to be better than this. And The Mandalorian has this struggle with embracing kind of like the fandom aspects of Star Wars to too much of a degree. And what Andor does well is it's a like political war espionage drama that takes place in the Star Wars universe, and that's why it's successful. It doesn't play to fan expectations. It doesn't treat the audience like they're dumb or that they're searching for more or they're always thirsting for like the next big Star Wars moment. And that's why this is a great show. And really, everybody involved should be super proud. This is the best piece of Star Wars content since the original trilogy, since Return of the Jedi, and I would bank on that. Thank you so much for checking out the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, I'd hope you consider subscribing. You could also like and share it. That tells the powers that be that it's worth promoting. And hit me up in the comments. Let me know, is Andor good? Where would you rank it among all of the Star Wars content? And I will see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.